So I'm sure we all just watched UFC 328, where Khamzat has just lost his belt to Sean Strickland. Sean just became a 2-time middleweight champion by taking this guy to a 5-round decision, which doesn't necessarily sound like a lot until you understand the backstory behind Khamzat. Khamzat was an undefeated middleweight champion with extremely dominant grappling and a very dominant fighter, where the UFC gave him the name the Boogeyman. But before this fight even got booked, we all saw Sean did not give a fuck. And there was no secret, there was a lot of bad blood between the two coming into this one.
Khamzat versus Strickland, bad blood. I mean, if you talk about top 5 UFC fights of all time where the guys there's serious hatred between them, I'd put this at number 2, behind Conor and Khabib. Yeah. And
with all the shit that was talked, the press conference actually came to 271,000 views, which is more than the past 4 events combined. And a lot of people are saying this has been the biggest beef since Conor and Khabib. And pretty much everyone thought it was going to be the same result as Conor and Khabib. But that obviously was not the case. Like everybody else, I had my doubts for Sean, but I had a feeling he was going to pull this off. Even talking to some of my friends, they all thought Sean had no chance.
Bro, what are you talking about? There's literally 0 chance Strickland wins. It's not even going to be close, bro.
But I had this gut feeling that it was going to be a repeat of Sean versus Izzy. And well, it was. Sean, a 4-1 underdog against Izzy, came in, outstruck him. And at that time, Izzy was one of the most known strikers inside the middleweight division. Most dominant strikers, I should say. Same thing with Khamzat, but with his grappling. Sean was a 4-1 favourite against Khamzat. And Khamzat was one of the most dominant grapplers inside of the middleweight division. And ultimately, Sean went and shocked the world twice. But all fight week, you could tell Sean was not going to lose. You could see there was not a single doubt in his mind, and you could tell when he was talking, he was telling the truth.
You don't want to see any of these motherfuckers fight that little Chechen war. You want to see the last fucking American in the sport go and fuck that guy up. And that's what's going to happen.
Sean Strickland, dude, to beat Khamzat Chimaev.
Anything I fucking want, dude. Anything I fucking want, dude. I'll bring a fucking go. He'll get distracted.
And I don't know Sean personally, but you can just tell he is a guy that doesn't bullshit. Now, I was picking Sean to win this fight, but obviously, again, I had my doubts. Especially knowing I was 0 for 2 for my last 2 picks, with picking Yuri to beat Wahlberg and JDM to beat Protest. And well, we all know how those both went. Before this fight happened, which made the whole lead up so interesting, is they both claimed to be the better man in the training room.
Witnesses in the audience. Where's Eric at? I made him quit.
Because a lot of this tension stemmed from them training together. The whole narrative that Sean Strickland built was Khamzat only dominates people he knows he can beat.
Every time Chimaev would walk in the gym, he would pick the smallest, lowest level pro and say, but oh, he looks like my opponent.
Strickland claimed he beat Chimaev in the gym and would ultimately beat him on fight night. And well, he wasn't bullshitting. With no video released at the time, Chimaev said there were a lot of guys around him watching him choke him out and beat him up, and that it was supposedly even recorded on camera. Now, Sean admitted he got tapped, but that was in situational grappling, where Chimaev actually started on Sean's back.
And he fucking positional grappling. All right, start on my back. And I was like, first round, I let him fucking choke me because it's like no one gives a fuck.
From that point there, it kind of tells you who's talking shit and who's not. On Fight Week, Chimaev actually posted a 25-second clip of him and Sean sparring and quoted it, "I am bullying weak people." Sean obviously created the rumor that Chimaev was picking on weaker people in the gym, which now that all time has passed, it was probably true. Strickland clapped back at that video and called him a little fucking rat. And that the clip actually proved his point, that the footage showed almost nothing and Khamzat actually had nothing to show. So the video is kind of a full circle moment, because Strickland spent years saying Khamzat was a fraud, who ultimately dominated weak opponents. Got laughed at for it as a 4-1 favourite, and pretty much proved every single point he said in the cage. Now, Strickland obviously didn't dominate Chimaev, but he clearly won. Khamzat was obviously dominating in that first round, but couldn't find a finish on Sean. Then in the second round, got reversed and stuffed multiple times. And you've seen Khamzat pull guard, which is almost shocking knowing Khamzat's capabilities. Now this all makes us wonder, how good is Sean Strickland's grappling defense? Now obviously, a lot of people knew, because a lot of people have said that Sean is actually a really good wrestler and that he actually has very solid grappling, but it's not in his style to take someone down. He prefers a good old-fashioned fist fight. And just because of that, people doubted his grappling capabilities. And well, he showed in the cage tonight that his grappling capabilities are very much up there. Analysts were actually asking whether all the trash talk would have a Jose Aldo effect, where Chimaev would get so emotionally rolled up that he would stray away from the game plan. Similar to how Aldo fought out of character against McGregor. given how the fight played out. Now, I don't think that was necessarily the case, but you could see when Khamzat got stuffed a couple times, his confidence dialed down a whole lot, because after that he didn't necessarily aggressively shoot again. Now, I reckon the odds should have been even, considering what was coming out of Sean's mouth. And yes, obviously people talk shit and make things up to build up a fight, but we should all know Sean is a very honest guy, so why would he do that? Everything that comes out of Sean's mouth is what he brutally thinks and is his honest opinion. So from that alone, I did truly think Sean could dismantle Khamzat's grappling. And well, he did. I was 50-50 on the whole fight, but at the end of the day, I had my faith in Strickland and he went out and proved it right. Now, there were obviously some behind the scenes things going on with Khamzat and his weight cut, where I did read somewhere that he was actually bulking up to fight Yuri for the vacant light heavyweight title. He'd already put on 21 kilos. And apparently that fight fell through. So that's when the Strickland fight got put on the table. And so his weight cut doubled supposedly, and he had to cut an extra amount of weight for this fight, which, as we all saw, Khamzat clearly missed weight and was looking extremely drained before stepping onto those scales. But yeah, moral of the story, don't ever doubt Sean Strickland. 4-1 favourite twice, stole the belt twice, 2-time middleweight champion, and proved he has some elite defensive grappling and offensive grappling. If we're being honest, that guy almost had 3 minutes of control time on Khamzat Chimaev in the second round. The Dricus trilogy, I would not be surprised if that happens, and Khamzat ends up moving up again. So yeah, I think the Dricus trilogy will happen if Khamzat decides to move up to light heavyweight, because apparently he did say that to Dana.
He literally walked up to me after the fight and said, I want to move up. Yeah. I don't want to fight in this weight class anymore.
But who knows? This fight game's pretty wild, and as for tonight, it has showed how wild it is again. But yeah, that's it. Sean Strickland is your new middleweight champion once again. Alright, peace.